Today we visit with Jayson Evans, our very own OKAG Director of Communications and Media. Jayson is one of the hardest working people I know. He works diligently behind the scenes at every one of our events. Today we are riding in one of my favorite all-time vehicles, the Ford F-150 Silver Platinum, crafted to conquer any terrain with unmatched style and performance. This truck can go fast and carry a big load, just like Jayson. He's Ford tough. On today's journey, our drive takes us to the OKC Beacon of Hope. We hope this chat takes you a little closer to the ultimate beacon of hope, Jesus. Let's slow down and catch up. Let's do some drive time. It's a beautiful Thursday, December 2nd, 51 degrees, supposed to be 70, and I'm driving with the one and only Jayson Evans, Director of Communications for the entire Oklahoma Assemblies of God.
Wow, that's a new title for me.
What is your title? Director of Media. Is this official?
I appreciate that. I'll take Communications Director.
Well, I would like for you to be the press secretary for all of our press conferences from here on out.
I can do that. Yeah. I can do that for you.
I remember this transition for you, and I remember where you were, but remind us what you were doing.
Yeah, I was a youth pastor in Cushing First Assembly, and I did that in an interim basis, part-time basis, and full-time basis for about 5 years.
Don't you think that describes all youth pastors?
Yeah.
Full-time, interim, temporary?
Well, I've come to learn, I think that it was probably a win-win. I was still in college at the time, and then I was interim in college, and then when I went to grad school, and then I was part-time. And then once I got out of college completely, that's when I went full-time. So,
what was the best part of youth pastoring?
That was a long time ago. Usually there's the bad memories. No, the thing, because of time, that I can look back on now and know was the best are the relationships you were able to build that lasted. So good. I would never have seen that when I was in it or a couple of years out of it, but now that it's been 10 plus years, there are still people that are we're still active in each other's lives. And it's hard to think back now because of the way you age that they were once in my youth group, because now they're adults who make, adult decisions most of the time. And, it's just weird to think like how I never would have thought this relationship would continue,
That's amazing. Jayson, it's so true. I'm old enough, I could have been your youth pastor. and so back when, dinosaurs roamed the earth is when I was youth pastor. But to this day, I have very tight, close relationships literally around the world, missionaries and pastors from our youth group. And they text or call, and it's like, we pick up right where we were at. So tell us where you went to school and what your undergrad and grad degrees are in.
So Oklahoma State University, Stillwater, Oklahoma. But I got my undergrad in broadcast production. So I thought, I really, really thought I was going into sports TV, sports production, not to be on camera or anything, but to just do behind the scenes. I did a lot of gigs. When ESPN or Fox, CBS would come to Stillwater, I would just work behind the scenes for those. They'd hire out day labor. And so that's what I thought. And then I went to grad school for media management and started learning a little bit more of the leadership side of that, which the only real two paths in that world are either running a news station or probably just teaching at the college level. So I kind of thought, well, I'm probably not going to do sports all the time, but maybe I'll teach at the college level. And then that's when I got into youth ministry, and now I'm here. So, which I think still pays off. Like, I still think some of the things I learned there. Pays off
for us.
Well, I just, some people see it and they're like, wow, those are two different worlds. But I think what I do every day, and then especially when we do our events or anything like that, I see where all that education was still pretty vital and valuable.
Okay, so home for you, Jayson.
Like what I call home?
Yes.
When I say I'm going back home, it's actually Pawnee, Oklahoma. So my dad was a pastor for, I think about 17 years at a little community called Skeety outside
Love
Pawnee.
Skeety.
That's a statue and that's about it. But so like for the holidays, I'll say I'm going home. It's usually to my sister's house outside of, in between Pawnee and Skeety.
Okay.
So home where my wife and I live is Newcastle, south of Oklahoma City.
And where did you two meet at?
We actually met working kids camps. Yeah. So there's.
Which is why you, single men and women, should sign up to work camps this summer.
Yep. So it's kind of one of those stories, but kind of not, because we worked kids camps for 2 years before we ever actually really talked to each other. But then after the second year, we start building friendships, and then we actually went on a mission trip to China together.
No way.
And then another 2 years after that, we started dating. So, it's just, it was a very long relationship story.
And God blessed you with an amazing woman of God.
Yeah, 100%. So I don't know where I would be without her. And I mean that. Tell her that all the time.
So we're going to Jayson's favorite view of Oklahoma City. And being a new guy to Oklahoma City, I'm looking forward to this.
It's if you want the downtown picture, this is the one we'll always go to. And if you've been to district events in the last 10 years, you've probably seen the picture at some point. We've used it for B-roll, and we've used it for stuff like that. So.
Okay, Jayson, best and worst part of being a PK growing up?
Best and worst part of being a PK. I've grown to learn. I think my PK experience is a little bit different, but worst part was honestly always the chance of a phone call while you were doing something with your family. And I see you nodding your head.
Any vacations ruined?
No.
Okay. And
no vacations were ruined, but we were also one of the families that camp meeting was our vacation growing
sure,
up.
Right.
So it was, but I do remember times of we're going to Tulsa and we were going to go to the zoo that day or something. And then, right before we walk out the doors, before cell phones, but the phone would ring and you just kind of had that feeling in your stomach, oh, something's about to change today. It didn't always, but occasionally it would. So that was probably for me, that was probably always the worst part, is just that sometimes plans change. Best part for me was probably just, I actually had a family upbringing that it wasn't overwhelming with you need to act this way, or you don't act this way, or you don't do this. But I felt like my parents really did a good job of being godly people in the home. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you feel
this one right here?
Yep. And then take a left.
Okay.
But they actually mimicked, being a godly person at home. And so I think that was actually the best part of my upbringing, of being able to see them in front of people and at home and pretty much act the same way, be the same people, because sometimes that's not always the case.
Boy, that is well said, Jayson. That's well said. My family has experienced that. We got to one destination, a 12-hour drive, and picked up the phone. A key member in the church suddenly passes. We turn around and drive all the way back. As a dad, my home pastor, Robert Pavadil, always taught that priority of ministry was, number one, your relationship to God, number two, your relationship with your family, number three, your relationship with your ministry, and you needed to keep those in order. But he taught that temporarily those offset each other. So although I was on a family trip, the emergency superseded that family trip. What I found myself trying to do was find times when I would normally be doing ministry and give that back to family.
Okay.
I never got that balance right, and still try to this day. But it's a challenge, right? I know your dad. Yeah, it's just, boy, when those things would happen, this heaviness would just come upon you because you don't want it to affect your kids negatively, and at the same time, how do you not respond to an emergency? So, boy, your words are well stated.
Yeah, it's tricky, and we don't have kids, so I don't know that side of it from that perspective. But it's hard to balance all those things, and obviously, I feel like life in general has become more busy, so it's even harder if we're not very serious about managing our time and trying to prioritize. I think it's just even getting more difficult.
Skeety, Cushing, Stillwater, now big Oklahoma City. How's Oklahoma City?
I like it. I've never had a problem with big city life. I mean, traffic has gotten progressively worse. There are days when I do miss the the no matter what 7-minute commute, which I know you're experiencing that now. But overall, I feel like maybe it's either a benefit or a curse of being a PK, but in some points or some ways, I feel like I kind of be a chameleon and try to just adapt to my surroundings and just go. It doesn't do a lot of good to complain about many things sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, I like the city. I've always, I like to travel, and going to big cities I enjoy. And so you get to experience some of that in Oklahoma City, and then some of that is saved for a larger destination.
Faith and I have had the blessing to be in big city, Tulsa, medium-sized city, small rural, and there are pros and cons to all of it.
Yeah.
And the grass is always greener until you get to the other side.
Yeah. Yep.
So we've discovered we're going to be content. Oklahoma rural is some of the most beautiful country on the planet. City has some good restaurants. We found ourselves thankful, and when God moves us from one to another, we find ourselves missing the plus sides of whatever side of the coin we're on.
Well, I find that so like going back to visit family, and you just get away from a lot of things, but at the same time, it's just, I'm kind of always fine wherever I am.
Yeah, well, that's a great godly place to be.
Yeah, I guess. It's good. Paul says to be content, right?
So good.
There is something sometimes about getting away from the people and just getting away from the busyness. It's very quiet at my sister's house. I like that because you don't always get that around here.
Jayson, I should explain, if anybody's watching this, that Drive, I've discovered in my journey that the best conversations that I've had are not sitting across a desk, or even better than that, across a lunch table, but in the vehicle, in a car, in a truck. And so honored to have a little time to converse with the director of the internet.
Yeah, there it is.
Jayson, you've brought me to the beacon of hope. I didn't know this existed.
Well, I didn't know it existed really until my buddy told me that this is where the original Oklahoma City ballpark was for their minor league team. But then it also is cited the oldest park in the Oklahoma Territory. So early 1900s, this was one of the first city parks, I guess.
Before statehood.
Yeah, before statehood even.
And we're surrounded by Oklahoma State, OU, medical, beacon of hope, and director of media. Well, that's what we want to broadcast, isn't it? All across Oklahoma is the hope that's found in Jesus Christ. And appreciate you and your team broadcasting hope and encouraging churches, local churches, the hope of the world.
It is a heavy responsibility. It's easy to get lost in just the work, you can lose sight of what you actually do. But I think if we can keep perspective of that and realize that there's a bigger cause, there's something more important than just creating some good graphic or making sure you have the best website. It really is about giving people hope.
How important it is for a media director or volunteer at a church to keep that in mind, that especially since last year the responsibilities are heavier, it can just become a job, but how important it is to keep that in mind?
Well, I mean, it's the most important thing, because I think if, it's easy, and I fear in the modern church today, it's very easy to get lost in the what are we doing to attract people, and it's like what are the steps we can do, or what design can we do, or this church doing something cool, but we can lose sight of the fact of how are we showing people Jesus, because that's the only thing that's going to draw people closer to God, is actually showing them Jesus. So sometimes that feels abstract when you're talking creatively, how do you show people Jesus? But I think if we can keep that at the forefront of all the things we do, of everything we do, whether it's creative ministry or whether it's youth ministry or whatever, it's just how can we show people Jesus? I think the work we do will ultimately become that. But if we don't remember that's the purpose, then our work is just our work, I think.
Jayson, that is so well said, and may God continue to help us introduce the beacon of hope, Jesus, to least, last, and lost.
Yep, I agree.